The south coast of New South Wales is washed by the wide, deep waters of the South Pacific Ocean. Occasionally something mysterious rises to the surface of those waters, causes a sensation for a while, which then submerges as completely as its cause. In early June 1930, 4 men, James Lane, Albert Day, or Gay or Gray, sources vary, George Richardson and Roy Wiley, were out fishing near Bellambi Reef, 3/4 of a mile off Wollongong. They hoped to catch some tasty fish for supper, and reeled in a snapper or two from the choppy water. As they bobbed in their small craft, they noticed what they took for some wreckage floating on the water nearby. Curious, they decided to row over and examine the jetsam, but as they approached, the object of their interest suddenly raised a head 5 feet above the surface of the water. With remarkable speed, the men pulled on their oars to retreat from what was obviously a living creature, a large and peculiar one at that. While standing to about 50 feet away, they witnessed it raise its head and about 6 feet of its body out of the water. Prudently, the quartet began rowing for shore. The marine animal, which they estimated to be about 30 feet long, began to follow, opening its mouth wide and emitting a roar like a seal, but much louder. For half a mile the sea beast followed them. The alarmed men fretted that the mouth was large enough to swallow them whole, but in any event they reached safety without being eaten. The story received a lot of attention Australia-wide, but locals were not surprised. Sea serpents were not a novelty in their waters. They appeared regularly, usually in the winter months. A sea serpent was reported about 1895 off Cape Jarvis, and had been seen several times in the late 1920s. On a Thursday evening after work, 20th of February 1919, 2 men were also fishing from a boat, and again catching snapper. One of the fish had just been caught and was being pulled aboard, when a 20-foot-long creature helped itself to an easy meal, grabbing the fish from them. Although seals are notorious for such behaviour, one of the men was an experienced sailor who had been around the world, and he could not identify the animal. On the 14th of August 1926, Charles Hillier and Percy Ross, like the other anglers, were out in their boat between Bellambi and Bulli when they saw a smaller creature, 12 foot long, with a snake-like head and a body resembling a porpoise. It writhed in the water alongside them with such sinuous movement that they doubted it had a spine. On the 16th of July 1930, 5 miles out to sea from Black Head at Kiama, Norman Johnston saw something 30 feet long with a high dorsal fin speeding by him at an incredible pace. Although he had been fishing since he was a boy, he had never seen anything quite like it. Once again, snapper was being fished at the time. This sighting was written off as that of a sunfish. Sunfish, however, have never been known to exceed 11 feet in length, and usually travel at a leisurely 3.2 kilometres an hour. Other explanations for the creature or creatures were a barnacle-encrusted tree floating on the water, a ribbon fish, a giant squid, and more plausibly a whale, which were also seen in the area. However, there was a story from Newcastle, further north on the New South Wales coast, from the 25th of August 1894, when a large creature was seen apparently fishing off Redhead. Then at 4 p.m, 2 large shapes were seen swimming fast a half-mile off of Nobbies. At first it was thought by the witnesses to be a large shark attacking a whale, but it was seen that the attacking creature had a snake-like neck which rose into the air and lunged forwards and downwards at the whale. This second creature had a brownish-coloured back and silvery underside. The pair swam out of sight before any resolution to the duel was observed. Further reports came in during 1930 at Wollongong, Scarborough and Tarrawanna. The Wollongong sighting was made by 4 men and a group of schoolboys, who said they saw a serpent 50 feet long with its neck raised, swimming around in a strange undulating fashion for a time, before disappearing. At Scarborough, 4 people, including the postmaster, glimpsed the visitor. The postmaster guessed it to be 80 to 90 feet long, raising its head at intervals as if feeding. From another vantage point, a second witness estimated the length to be a more modest 30 feet, which was more consistent with the other reports. They also thought the creature had a beak like a pelican's. At least 2 expeditions set out to hunt down the sea serpent and capture or kill it. Both were unsuccessful. In early August, a Mr. Brown of Kiama was gazing at the sea when 400 feet from shore he saw something glittery poke its neck 6 feet out of the water. It then swam rapidly in the direction of Blowhole Point. The same thing was seen by 15-year-old Dan Thompson and 19-year-old Mick Richardson. As there are many underwater caverns on the coast at Blowhole Point, it was speculated that they were the lair of the sea serpent. Off Narrabeen on the 18th of November 1930, Mr. and Mrs. Parrington observed a sea monster. They at first thought they had caught sight of a ship's mast, until they used field glasses and were astonished that it was a sea serpent they estimated to be 70 feet long. At Narooma, 200 kilometres to the south of Wollongong, on the 17th of June 1931, a Mr. Claude Whitfield asserted that he saw a sea serpent a half a mile out to sea, heading in a southerly direction. The claim was backed up by Mr. and Mrs. J. MacDonald and Mr. Tom Barker. Both these men were experienced fishermen. On the same day, north of Wollongong at Cold Cliff, a mother whale tending to her calf were momentarily mistaken for a serpent as they swam in a northerly direction. A serpent had been reported by the officer of the steamship Industry on the 25th of March 1893, 10 miles north of Montague Island, a small outcrop of rock with a lighthouse due east of Narooma. They stated it raised its head and neck 15 feet out of the water, being covered in scales of a dirty brown and white pattern. They say erroneously that lightning never strikes the same place twice. It would be incorrect to say sea serpents don't either. On the 4th of June 1931, 3 fishermen in a boat off of Bellambi saw an enormous dorsal fin pass close to their boat, 2 miles off Tarodji. Despite explanations of a sunfish or a whale, one of the men had experience with sea serpents. George Richardson, who had been on the boat in 1930, was again one of the trio, with his brother William Richardson and with Jack Morgan. The fishermen thought they had seen a cuttlefish on the surface, which they rowed towards to capture for use as bait, but whatever it was disappeared. That's when a dorsal fin emerged 4 or 5 feet from the depths. They said it was a bronze colour with brown and white splotches, 7 feet long and 3 feet thick at the front, tapering backwards with a top ending in a sort of half hook. It slowly moved from side to side, as if aiding in propulsion, as the 16-foot-long boat was circled 3 times, and the creature swam beneath it twice, close enough that its huge sail-like fin could have been touched from the nose of the boat where William Richardson sat. As it submerged beneath the boat, the men braced for an impact, but the creature seemed content to reconnoitre. When it had swum about 12 yards distant, they began rowing to shore. The monster followed for a short distance, then slipped beneath the waves. About half a mile away, with no more sign of it, they stopped and recommenced fishing. Jack Morgan said he only saw the fin, but estimated the animal could have been 20 to 30 feet long and very broad, but added that he had not seen it clearly. He believes he had seen the same fin cutting the water in the distance a few times before, without knowing what it was. It was noticed that every time the animal was seen off Bellambi, rough weather had preceded the appearance. The next report of a marine mystery was made on the 17th of July 1931 at Bateman's Bay, in the mouth of the Clyde River. It was said by the witnesses, G. Petrek and Bill Lawler, to be 12 feet long, with a flat head, brown in colour, with white jowls. Something was still making people do a double take in March 1934, when it was Ulladulla's turn to be visited. The Tetley brothers saw a creature with a canine head on a 6-foot neck that snaked about above the water in the harbour. Fishermen prepared themselves to catch the mysterious denizen of the deep, but it seems, as if for a while at least, the sea serpent had swum back into the dark corners of history.